Hey guys, let's get more news from Dallas Cowboys, but first don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your like. Commanders are reportedly interested in another Cowboys coach. The Washington Commanders have made a pretty big splash by hiring Dan Quinn, who was the Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator for the last 3 seasons, to be their new head coach. With new ownership headed by billionaire investor Josh Harris and NBA legend Magic Johnson, it looks like the Commanders are serious about being a legitimate winning franchise. It is now time for Quinn to fill his coaching staff, and per Calvin Watkins, the team is interested in another Cowboys coach. Joe Witt Jr. Witt is being considered for Washington's defensive coordinator role, and he has served as Dallas passing game coordinator since 2021. Prior to that, he had been an assistant for the Atlanta Falcons, Green Bay Packers, Cleveland Browns, and Atlanta Falcons. Dallas is also looking to perhaps hire Witt to be their new defensive coordinator, with Quinn now in Washington. Washington went 4-13 this season in their first year under their new ownership regime, and they have plenty of weaknesses to address moving forward. They will have the number 2 pick in April's draft, which they could use on a new quarterback, or perhaps a wide receiver or edge rusher. There is now some optimism surrounding the franchise that it never really had during its 20-plus years under the ownership of Dan Snyder, who became a controversial figure for many reasons. The Commanders had been one of the NFL's most respected and successful franchises in the 1980s and early 1990s, and getting back to that level of competitiveness is obviously the goal of their new ownership group. Report: Cowboys plan to interview Ron Rivera next week. Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy is looking for his 3rd defensive coordinator in 5 seasons. He fired Mike Nolan after 1 season and hired Dan Quinn, who left to become the head coach of the Commanders on Thursday. David Moore of the Dallas Morning News reports the Cowboys are expected to interview Ron Rivera for the job next week, confirming what was expected if Quinn left. The Commanders fired Rivera after he went 26-40-1 in 4 seasons as the head coach of the team. Rivera has interviewed with the Rams for their defensive coordinator position and was linked with the Eagles before they hired Vic Fangio. Rivera, 62, spent 9 seasons as head coach of the Panthers before going to Washington. He has not served as a defensive coordinator since 2010 with the Chargers, but he handled those duties in the final weeks of the 2023 season for the Commanders after firing Jack Del Rio. Mike Vrabel, Brandon Staley, Wink Martindale, and Mike Zimmer are other outside candidates the Cowboys could consider in their search for Quinn's replacement. One premium plan as the Dallas Cowboys have long prepped for the departure of Dan Quinn, which occurred on Thursday with the defensive coordinator taking the head coaching job with the Washington Commanders, was to promote from within. And that can still work, with sources telling CowboysSI.com that Dallas assistant Joe Witt Jr. is the front-runner to take over for Quinn. But NFL sources now tell us that the Cowboys also want to visit with the man Quinn is replacing, fired Washington head coach Ron Rivera. The anticipation of Witt leaving is best defined by one person close to the deal who tells us, Quinn and Witt are attached at the hip. We do not know if that visit will occur in person or via Zoom. And depending on what Quinn does in trying to take an assistant with him, maybe an in-house candidate will get the promotion. In addition to Quinn, possibilities include Cowboys secondary coach Al Harris and the defensive line coach Aiden Durd. But the Cowboys may be wise to examine backup plans, and maybe just to pick the brain of Rivera, who has had success as a coordinator and as a head coach. There are other compelling names available, with head coaching experience of the sort that Dallas boss Mike McCarthy might prefer. That group includes Mike Vrabel and Brandon Staley and heck, maybe even Bill Belichick. Jerry Jones makes Bill Belichick admission as Mike McCarthy hot seat pressure rises. Jerry Jones, the owner of Dallas Cowboys, has reignited rumors about hiring Bill Belichick, putting current head coach Mike McCarthy under pressure. The Cowboys were previously linked to the legendary coach after his departure from the New England Patriots. After a disappointing playoff performance against the Green Bay Packers, many fans called for McCarthy's replacement. The 2023 season for the Cowboys was a familiar tale for fans: regular season success followed by playoff disappointment. Despite this, Jones announced that McCarthy would remain for at least another season. However, in a recent interview with Yahoo Sports, Jones hinted at the possibility of working with Belichick. He said, "I know him personally and I like him. There's no doubt in my mind we could work together. None. He is a friend and I like him, and I want to make real clear, I wouldn't have any problem working with him." Despite having one of the best rosters in the NFL, Dallas struggled in key games under McCarthy, leading many fans to call for change. During their defeat to the Packers, Cowboys fans voiced their frustration loudly. The team had been favorites but were outplayed in every aspect of the game. Belichick had been linked with the Cowboys even before this, following his departure from New England at the end of the regular season. After missing out on the Cowboys' job, Belichick was tipped for roles with the Atlanta Falcons and Los Angeles Chargers. However, the Chargers quickly appointed University of Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh, while the Falcons surprised everyone by choosing Los Angeles Rams defensive coordinator Raheem Morris over Belichick. Jerry Jones turned heads earlier this week when he said there was no doubt in his mind he could work with Bill Belichick. The Dallas Cowboys owner spoke highly of Belichick at the Senior Bowl earlier this week, with some speculating it was a recruiting tactic not for this season, but for 2025. That is because the Cowboys have already committed to Mike McCarthy for the 2024 season, despite the Cowboys' disastrous loss in the wildcard round at home to the Green Bay Packers, a 48-32 stunner. The loss, despite a third straight 12-5 regular season, this one ending with an NFC East title, had many questioning McCarthy's future as the team's head coach. It was more so the case this year, as the Cowboys seemed ready to take a leap to compete for the Super Bowl. Jones seemed to choose McCarthy over Belichick, making that decision after Belichick and the New England Patriots mutually parted ways. Jones added that he did not talk to anybody that is a head coaching candidate other than my own. So, despite his appreciation for Belichick, it seems that McCarthy was always Jones' answer. However, the comments about Belichick alone were staggering, says Philadelphia Eagles legend Donovan McNabb. On his Outkick podcast, The 5 Spot, McNabb said Jones' comments about Belichick were not really supporting his head coach or Dak Prescott. And you fan, what do you think of the Bill Belichick situation? Leave your opinion in the comments.